and why. My name is Robert Green and I'm an investigator. I'm representing Hollie Greig and her mother Anne Greig regarding the terrible issue of the paedophile rape gang operating in Aberdeen. It's a rather long story, but it was discovered in 2000 by Anne's mother that Hollie had been systematically raped, initially from the age of 6 by her father and elder brother, and then a little later being shared with a gang in Aberdeen that included 2 nurses, 2 people from social services, a police officer called Terry Major from Grampian Police, and a judge, or as they're known in Scotland, a sheriff, and this was called Sheriff Graham Buchanan. Most of the rapes took place at the home of the sheriff's sister Evelyn, which was used as a centre for the ring. All the matter was brought before the police. Hollie gave all the evidence. There was medical evidence, there was expert witness evidence from psychiatrists to say that Hollie was a credible and truthful witness, and all this was accepted. One would have thought, with that very clear evidence, not only about the perpetrators but also the other known victims, and there were plenty of them, that action would have been taken in 2000, but no, it wasn't. It was prevented by the Procurator Fiscal of Aberdeen at the time, who has the final say on these matters, who stopped the investigation. It transpired that the Procurator Fiscal, whose name is Elish Angelini, who is subsequently been promoted to the highest legal office in Scotland, that of Lord Advocate, was a personal contact, a personal associate of Sheriff Graham Buchanan. And on that grounds, I would imagine that's the only possible reason why this gang was not brought to justice. It also confirms why things have not moved more smoothly in 2009, despite Hollie giving the evidence all over again, and other information coming forward, including Hollie's medical notes that show that she'd been abused at the special school that she had from 1990. So all this was covered up. Anne Greig, the mother, was never told, and Hollie has suffered years and years of misery as a result of the people in the public services squashing this terrible, terrible situation. I believe that the reason that the judicial process has not been resolved in the way that it should have been could be attributed to just one word. That one word is blackmail. Members of within the authority in Aberdeen have in their own situation where they can literally blackmail each other. And we already know of medical officers, teachers, and a wide range of people being involved in paedophilia there, in addition to the people who are involved in Hollie's case. This goes right to the top. We've talked about Sheriff Buchanan, we talked about the former Procurator Fiscal, who was the highest authority in the area at the time. And of course it's now effectively supported by the Scottish Government themselves. The First Minister, Alex Salmond, was first told about this case about 4 months ago, in which he has done very little apart from appoint certain people from the Crown Office to deal with it, but they have not been at all effective at the present time.
But it's very difficult. You can't really blame Alex Salmond, can you? Because this is a judicial matter. I mean, he can put pressure on the judges, but ultimately it's not his decision. Aren't you assuming that he's not doing stuff, but maybe he is doing it?
No, I'll just go. There's something I can tell you on that straight away. I think it is important to realise that we'd already established with Alex Salmond that Elish Angelini, in her current role as Lord Advocate, this year, under pressure about the Hollie story, even sought to lie to the officer put in charge of the case, Mr Andrew McIntyre, Head of Victims and Diversity. I had a number of exchanges with Mr McIntyre, and in one conversation later on in the summer, Mr McIntyre said that all these complaints that we've been receiving from you about the Lord Advocate's role in the Hollie Greig case can't be true because she wasn't in situ as Procurator Fiscal in Aberdeen at the time and knows nothing about the situation. Well, I said, indeed. I said, well, when did she become Procurator Fiscal? Mr McIntyre, and he said 21st of July 2000. And I said, well, I can tell you for sure that the names of all the main perpetrators, including Sheriff Graham Buchanan, and all the other members other than the father and brother were named at Buckburn Police Station in Aberdeen on the 25th of August 2000. Mr McIntyre then went on to say that he perhaps thought that members of the Procurator Fiscal's office had been dealing with it themselves without telling the Procurator Fiscal, which I thought was extremely odd concerning the hideousness of the crime and scale of the crime, and also that one of the main people involved in it was a personal friend of the Procurator Fiscal, Sheriff Graham Buchanan. Mr McIntyre was still a little stumped about this, but he still insisted that the Lord Advocate did not know anything about the case. I then was able to produce to Mr McIntyre a letter. Yes, a letter from Hollie's own MSP, Mr Brian Adam, dated the 27th of October 2000, 4 months after Mrs Angelini came into office as Procurator Fiscal. The letter is, we have copies of the letter. It was written directly to Mrs Angelini, asking her precisely what progress she had been making in this terrible case. Mrs Angelini, of course, has continued to claim that she knows nothing about the case. She has lied to a member of her own staff on this, on a matter of absolutely crucial importance. Therefore, Mr Salmon, I think, is remiss in not actually making sure that Mrs Angelini no longer remains as Lord Advocate of Scotland. I believe he is complicit in letting down the people of Scotland by allowing someone who has knowingly lied even to her own staff.
Can you just tell us what you think the implications, though, are for ordinary people with what's going on? I mean, maybe you can start with the implications for ordinary people.
Yes, I think this is a little bit of a tough one, because one of the difficulties we have is if you're an ordinary member of the public and you never fortunate enough to go through life never falling foul of anyone in a high-level official capacity, it is quite possible that you might think you're still living in a civilised, decent country where things looked after properly. It is only when you come to find out about these things, either personally or perhaps through friends or relatives, that you realise that the situation is nothing like as rosy as you would wish it to be. And I think the main problem is that we really need more people to be made aware of this. However, because the press are being so suppressed on this one, the chances of people being aware of all the problems that exist in society at this level are slim. These scandals only seem to come out very occasionally, and I think the public may well be led to believe that these are something very unusual. It's terrible, it's disgusting, but it happens once in every 10 years. It doesn't. It's happening all over the country. It's happening all over Scotland for sure, which I think is probably the worst area of the United Kingdom, but I have no reason to suspect that it's not happening in England, Wales and Northern Ireland as well, judging by the calls that I get.
What's the motives behind it all then?
It's difficult to say. It's obviously terribly difficult to get within the minds of the people who perpetrate these terrible things. I think most of us would feel sick thinking about not only the things that people might do, but the sheer horror that they have this power, or feel this power, this extreme cruelty over abusing people in that way, people who they know will probably never be able to testify against them. It is absolutely barbaric, and I think it's sometimes difficult for people in society to think we have people living like this amongst us. I think a very popular misconception is that people still think of as the pervert as the dirty old man in a raincoat standing outside the school offering bags of sweets to children. Well, I've no doubt that that particular type of person still exists, but what people overlook, and I think, or perhaps don't overlook as much as we think, is that a lot of these perverts look like you and me and everyone else. They're quite often people from the professional classes. They're quite often respectable-looking people with decent jobs. They look very much like anyone else, and that is the most frightening thing of all.
But what's the motive? What's the motive behind it all?
I think a lot of the motive, it is some sort of perverted lust and power more than anything else. One of the things that does come up quite a lot is this tends to run in families. Even with Hollie's group, the children were being abused were the members of each other's families, and they were sharing them out with other parents in the group. And I understand that this is something that's been going back in time for many, many years in many of these families, and obviously how it can be brought to an end, I don't know, but the children are brought up with this rather unhappy and twisted perspective, which they carry on perhaps doing what their mothers and fathers particularly had done to them before, without really having real morality about it.